This is a tutorial on fair SRC review. We're going to log in as an SRC member for a district or regional or state fair, and we're going to go through the fair SRC review process where we review projects that are entering into our district or regional or state fairs. I'm going to log in with my username and password. If you don't have your username and password, contact your fair director. You should have been sent one. When you are added, your fair director can recover that for you or add you as an SRC member and give you your password. I'm going to log in with my username and password at signtier.com. First thing I always want to do is go to my role chooser and make sure, especially if I have multiple roles, that I'm going to the right place. I am an SRC member, that's what I want, and I'm doing the district fair right now. So I'm going to make sure that I'm on the right screen. Now I'm on my district fair SRC review dashboard. If you'll notice, there are 4 boxes here. At the top box we see project pre-approval reviews. These are not going to concern us at the moment for fair SRC reviews. These are mainly for districts and those who do prior approvals on their projects before they start. Most of our regional fairs do not do that. However, some of you may. But anyway, we're processing winners that are coming into our fair. So we as SRC members in this tutorial are interested in our fair reviews boxes. On the left hand side we have the red box that says require review, and then on the green box we have a box that says reviewed. See a number 3 on this one, that indicates that I have 3 projects that are waiting to be reviewed. If I want to review those projects, I simply click on more info. Once I review those projects, they'll be moved over to my reviewed box. I'm going to look through here. I can sort these by various columns. I can sort them by division. S is for senior or high school, J is for junior or middle school. I can sort them by category. I can sort them by any one of these columns that I need to. And more importantly, I can filter things out. So let's say I don't want to review chemistry. I just want to review all the category of carrots. And if I type in carrots, then it filters everything except carrots out. If I'm looking for a specific project ID, I can do that as well. Type in the project ID. If I don't want it to filter anything, I will type nothing in there. I can also have it display. Now, it's a very small test fair. There's only 3 projects. Most of you will probably have hundreds of projects, so you'll want to list maybe more than 10 or 15 per page. You might want to list as many as 100 per page. And if you have more pages to scroll through, you'll have that here. Now, your search function will still work through all of those pages. So if you're looking for a particular project, no matter which page it's on, the search function will find it for you. I'm going to pick a project here and we're going to go through a review. We see that it's at the SRC stage of fair approval. That means it's coming into the fair and it needs to be approved. The SRC review status is needs review, and if it's yellow, that means it's waiting for somebody like me to review it. If I send it back for corrections, it'll turn a different color and it'll say waiting on student corrections. When the student sends it back, it'll turn another color and it'll say needs to be reviewed again or something of that nature. So what I'm going to do here, I like the title of this project, so I'm going to do that one, the Death Star. I want to review this project. So I click review and I come to the project review screen. This is exactly the same review screen that the teachers use, exactly the same review screen that the school SRC members use. For those of you who have not watched that tutorial, I'm just going to briefly go over some of these functions. Project overview window, we have the title, student names and all of that kind of stuff. Very interesting button here we have called review status. We can see the history of a project review. We can see how many times it was sent back to get the bibliography fixed. I use this as a reference. We're reviewing lots and lots of projects, and sometimes you see this project and you think, didn't I ask this student for this like 52 times already? Well, now we can prove it. We can look in there and see, and it'll have the reviewer's name and their role, and it'll have the subject and what we asked them to fix, all the way back to their teacher and to their first review. So the latest reviews will be on top. If I had sent it back to the student, which I did not too long ago on January 23rd, to have it fixed, I can see that that was the last comment that was made. So then I've got a big button here that says Select Form for Review. This button corresponds to the form that's being displayed in the window over here on the right hand side. By default it's on the research plan, and a lot of times that's where we want to start. But if we want to start on the abstract, we can select a different form here. But let's just start with the research plan for now. All research plans will be formatted the same with the information at the top here. We will have the sections, rationale, hypothesis, materials, procedure, analysis. We will have a summary section now. That's a new requirement by ISEF. We will have our bibliography section, and in between, if we've got extra forms, we may have a hazardous materials and devices section. We may have a vertebrate animal section, but they will all be laid out in a similar format, and you'll be able to view the actual form right here if you need to. On the left hand side, we have the questions that the students were asked to answer and their answers, and they correspond to these fields on the form. So rationale, here's the answer. It's the same answer as here, so we can actually use this. I just wrote very short sentences. These would be larger paragraphs. We read the students' answers. We can read them on the form if we want to, and then find it over here on the side, however you want to do that. If you find something wrong, we simply ask for a revision, and it'll ask us to leave a comment. We don't have to tell the student, go back to the research plan and do this or do that. We just have to tell the student what's wrong. We'll say, check your spelling. So I should check my spelling. Check your spelling, and after each comment we hit submit. That does not submit it to the student. It's just submitting it to memory so that when we send it back to the student, we'll have all of that. Again, if we find another section where they've got an issue, we can make a comment, and after each comment we want to hit submit, so that's saving it to the project. If we decide we didn't really mean that, we can always take it away by clicking the X box. If you make a comment, don't make a comment like great job, way to go, you're doing great, because then the system thinks the project's got a problem. And if you leave a comment and submit it, guess what? You can't approve it. It says it cannot be approved until all the flags are removed. So if you need to get rid of that because you decided you do want to approve the project, we would get rid of it like that. Submit to update it, and that removes it, and now it would let me approve the project. We can do that for various forms. I'm going to go ahead and ask for fix spelling, something silly. So I've updated it, I've hit submit, and it says you've commented on one line. Now let's look at some different forms. Oh, by the way, the start date is right here. It's nice to have available in case you need it. It's the student's project start date is listed right there at the top of the screen. Let's go to select form for review. This will give us a list of all the forms that are associated with this project. If we've read through the research plan and it looks like they're missing a form, we don't put a comment over here. We have some special buttons over here. We can say add a form. Maybe this project needed a vertebrate animal form. Well, in this case, I would click add a form, and then I would find the appropriate vertebrate animal form that student needs, or if he needs a qualified scientist or any of those other forms. Some of these forms are SRC dependent forms, meaning they need prior approval. So if you add one of those forms to the project, it's basically going to send the student way back to the beginning, and he's going to have to go get signatures and stuff all over again. If you just add a risk form 3 or something like that, they don't have to reset their project. They won't lose any of their data, but they will have to go back through the steps and get signatures again. There's a button called Remove Forms. A lot of times a student will include a bunch of forms they don't really need, and with the Remove Form button you have an option of removing forms. I don't have any forms here to remove. These are all required forms, so they're nothing to be listed. Also, we see in the research plan there's a bibliography section, but the bibliography is sort of its own sort of its own thing, and there's no place over here for me to ask for corrections on the bibliography. I would do that up here with the special actions button. It says flag bibliography. If I click that, it'll tell me to leave a comment. That will take the student back to the bibliography section to fix it. Maybe the student, let's look at some other forms here. I'm going to switch and we're going to look at the student checklist 1A. Now this is the form where they have to list where they did their work and all of that stuff, and their start date and their end date. But let's say we see an address we don't think is correct, or something's wrong with the form. There's no place to comment on it. So if there's a problem with their location, we have a button to flag the location. If there's a problem with the end date, we have a button to flag that. If there's a problem with the start date, we have a button to flag that. If there are issues on the dates of, say, the Form 1B, let me just look at the Form 1B. Now, there are date mechanisms in place that prevent project's dates from violating the start date, but every once in a while you get a glitch or something, or you get a crazy parent who assigned something the wrong year. That's happened a lot because they're using the date picker. If that's messed up, the student can't really fix that. We need to report that to support because that has to be fixed. That has to be fixed manually because that was a system error. And there's no way for the student to go back and fix their mom's date or the parent's date. And we don't want them to send that back, try to send that back to their parent, or they struggled to get it in the first place. We can tell when they put the wrong year there. We can fix that. So you need to submit that as a technical error. Let's look at some of the other forms here. The checklist for adult sponsor. The student has no access whatsoever to this form. So you can't tell a student fix checkbox 2 or fix checkbox 3 or fix checkbox 5. If there's something not checked here, it's because they're missing a form. The system simply takes their forms and fills out the checkboxes for them. So you don't want to make any comments on this form either. What you want to do then, if there's a checkbox that's wrong, you need to fix it with the add or remove form buttons, and that will automatically fix the checkboxes. If you think the student has chosen a bad category, the Death Star doesn't really fit in the category carrots, you can flag the project category and ask the student, or suggest that the student maybe choose a better category. Same thing with flag the project title. Maybe they've misspelled something, they're saying something that needs to be fixed. We would flag the project title here. Again, a lot of these forms don't have any way for the students to fix. So if there are no fields over here, don't beat your keyboard and report to support that you can't enter the information. If there's no fields over here, that means you have to find the answer over here somewhere. That basically covers most of the, I'm going to go back to the research plan, most of the tutorial on how to review a project. So what I'm going to do now is I've told them to fix some spelling on the research plan. You notice as I go to the Form B, my comments are gone because I made them on the research plan. So I'll go back to the research plan and make sure my comment's still there, and it is. And since I have a comment and I asked for a revision, it's not going to let me approve this project. My only other choices are to send it back to the student for revision or to recommend a disqualification. Now, if I click recommend disqualification, this does not send a nasty message to the student saying, oh, you're bad, you can't come to our fair. It doesn't notify the student of anything. What it does is mark the project and keeps it from going back to the student or into the competition until we can discuss it with the fair director. If you come across these issues, they should be handled by the fair director. You need to inform the fair director of a potential fail to qualify. So we can go ahead and mark it here to recommend disqualification, but that is not the final word on disqualification. It's just marking it so other people can look at it and discuss how's the best way to handle this. Sometimes we have to be very political about how we do those things, and those are best left to our fair directors and the people up there on the front lines to take the blunt force trauma that the parent's going to give you if you do that. So let's send this back to revision so we don't upset anyone, or I don't have to make any phone calls. I'm going to click send back for revision. It's going to ask me for the review date. Of course, the review date needs to be before our fair date. Any of these dates will work. My fair is not set till later. And I will send it back for revision. Then I'm back to my initial dashboard. I'm going to click here again and see how the status has changed. It's still in my review box, but its status has changed to under revision by the student. Now, until the student addresses those issues, it's going to stay in that status. So we'll just have to wait until the student makes those corrections. If I've sent it back for corrections and I got to thinking about it, and I shouldn't have sent that back, we should have just let it go through, I can always go back and find that project if you can remember which one it is. We can go back and re-review it and go back and remove our comments and update it. And then we can approve it and give our date. And now it's been approved, so it's moved over to my reviewed box. So that's how we would withdraw a comment. You want to be careful about messing around with that. If you've added where it may get tricky is if you've added a bunch of forms and then you decide you want to go take all the forms back, or you've removed a bunch of forms and then you want to go and try to put them all back, it might get confusing. So be careful on your reviews before you submit it. Only submit what really needs to be submitted. You can withdraw your review, just like we did this one here, especially if it's just minor comments. But let's try not to do reviews like that. Let me look here in my reviewed so we can see the status. Now it says it's been approved by the chair, and the fair stage was fair approval. If I go and look at this project again, which I'll have to do in this case because I review these after the winners are selected, I'm just going to look at it right now, but so I can show you what happens to the Form 1B once we have signed it. And nothing happened to that Form 1B. It didn't take my signature. Let me look at the abstract, because this was a pre-fair review. There's the stamp for the abstract, so it's being allowed into the fair. The Form 1B probably is not signed yet because I haven't done my post-fair review. I have the fair set up to do a post-fair fair review. Oh no, I'm on the district fair. District fair, there won't be a signature on the 1B. Excuse me. Yeah, I forget. So district fair, actually, if we look at the Form 1B, there's no place for district fair SRC to sign. It's just regional and state. So since I'm in a district fair, my signature is not going to go anywhere. If I had reviewed that as a regional chair, my signature would be here. If I'd have done it as a state chair, my signature would be on that line. That's the reason for that. I got nervous there for a second. If I want to abandon a review, I'm getting in the middle of it, decide I'm over my head, just make sure you remove all of your comments, and then we just go back over here and go back to our current dashboard, and we just exit out of it like that. If I have it open for review, another reviewer won't be able to open it as long as I've got it open, so we don't want to open it and then walk off and leave it there for a long time. Again, the required review are on the left-hand side. We've got a couple more projects that need to be reviewed. The ones I have already reviewed are on this side. Now, we've done our pre-fair review. After our fair selects their winners, it could be when you need to speak with your fair directors to see if they do a post-fair review. If they do a post-fair review, All of your projects that you'll be interested in will be over here in this category, or most of them will be. So you'll need to pay attention to their statuses, because even though they're moved over to this box, they may have a status that says needs to be reviewed or post-fair review. So that's how you will do your post-fair review. Those projects will be listed back to this box. And if I just want to filter, I can run a filter on it, filter winners for post-fair review. I haven't selected any, so there's not any. But I can do away with all the other projects that are blocking my view by clicking the filter winners, because we're only interested in the post review for the winners.